If you look at the Geometry Dash leaderboard today, you'll notice that there isn't a lot of movement. Today, Smithy777 is the #1 player in the world. He's held that position since early 2021 and has had a pretty easy time defending that honor. Before Smithy, many different players had a spell of leaderboard domination. Cool Dash, Shaggy23, and Michigan among others. Before these players, in Geometry Dash's infancy, the game was more akin to the Wild West. Anyone with a working cell phone had the opportunity to become the best player in the world. However, when Geometry Dash was just 6 months old, one player appeared who was so good that his talent could only be compared to people 7 years ahead of his time. Not only was he beating every star-rated level, but while doing so, he was beating the hardest levels the game had to offer. For 10 months, he had the world in his hands, but as soon as he showed up, he disappeared without a trace. To this day, nobody knows what happened to him. For a full calendar year, he was the undisputed greatest player in the world, but when he left, it seems like everyone's memory of him left too. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't know who he was. Even if you do know, you probably don't know the full story. This is SaRy. In 2013, Geometry Dash was still a small game. While the community was minuscule in the United States, the game had a massive following in South Korea. In 1999, the South Korean online platform Naver was created. The Korean community would use this site to make a Geometry Dash forum called Geometry World.
3, 2, 1.
When 2014 came, Geometry World was still having many new people join the forum. On January 3rd, a 16-year-old named SaRy made their first post on GW. He attached a screenshot of himself sitting at number 6 on the global leaderboard. At first, people didn't know what to think of him, but when he took the #1 spot just 7 days later, everyone knew they were looking into the eyes of greatness. SaRy would be the first ever player to stay on top of the global leaderboard for an extended period. Many tried to beat him, but nobody could. He was simply too good. While no one was able to stop him, SaRy set sight on breaking every record imaginable. On February 1st, SaRy would be the first person to reach 3,000 stars. The day after Valentine's Day, he would be the first person to complete 100 demon levels, the hardest difficulty in the game. A few days later, he would have reached 4,000 stars, and a month after that, 5,000. Only at this point would SaRy start to feel the pressure, and it was from someone you might recognize. SaRy and Cyclic would push each other to great heights for the majority of their star grinding careers, sometimes trading the top spots among each other. Most of the time, it was SaRy who had the last laugh. On June 6, 6 months after his first post, he had a huge milestone. SaRy was the first person in the world to earn 10,000 stars. In half a year, SaRy pushed the record from 2,000 stars to 10,000, and nobody was even close to him. This moment was the peak of SaRy's career. While he did go on to reach much higher numbers, this was his last massive achievement. On October 5th, SaRy hit his last big milestone, being the first man to reach 14,000 stars, with 400 demons completed. After this, he would collect just 100 more stars. SaRy would hang around the forums for a few more months, but after the release of Update 1.9, SaRy disappeared from the internet. To this day, nobody has heard from him since 2014. While we're going to talk about what happened, now would be a good time to talk about what SaRy left behind for the community. More specifically, the levels he built. SaRy's first documented level was a short challenge called SaRy World, which was released in February of 2014. The only reason this level's existence is known is because of a 5-second video that SaRy himself posted to GW. His big break as a creator came after building a level called Hate War. For those of you who are curious, SaRy very explicitly states his stance on the topic. For whatever reason, the level was seemingly impossible due to an apparent physics change around 1.6. After this, SaRy would rebalance the level, making it once again possible. Strangely enough, this won't be the first time this happens. His next level was Auto Demonov, a level that beats itself. Even for today's standards, the level looks great, and the auto gameplay is creative. SaRy incorporates block design into the level, which is extremely rare for this time period. He also has a pretty neat signature at the end of the level. SaRy's next big project came out during update 1.8 titled Collaboration. While it's technically not the first of its kind, the level popularized the trend for multiple creators to work on a single project. Nowadays, it's hard to find a level that wasn't worked on by different people. Despite the influence, Collaboration did not have a great reception on release because of its extremely difficult ending. This part was SaRy's contribution to the level. While Collaboration may be his most influential level, the honor of the most popular one would have to go to Red World. Red World was truly a one-of-a-kind level. It was the first level to incorporate the Swing Copter, a game mode that was officially added to the game 9 years later in Update 2.2. When Update 1.9 was released, a block was changed into a decoration, making the level impossible to complete. Instead of fixing the problem, RobTop decided to unrate it. The level would stay this way for many years to come. Red World wasn't forgotten about though. A few years later, Heinz, Findexy, and Vibrant created Red World Rebirth, a reimagination of the original level. The visuals were overhauled and the gameplay was buffed at various parts. This version of Red World was most famously known as Geometry Dash Legend Riot's last large-scale verification. Today, Red World Rebirth is the definitive version of the two levels. 7 years after Red World's original release, RobTop finally restored the lost block, making the level once again possible. The original Red World was re-rated, and one of the weirdest 7-year sagas came to an end. It's safe to say that SaRy had a long-lasting legacy. That begs the question as to why he would throw all that away by leaving. While no one outright accused him of cheating, a few people were starting to grow suspicious of his talent. To understand these accusations, we'll have to go back to the beginning. During Update 1.2, a creator known as San0924 uploaded a level called the Hell Zone. This was much harder than anything else in Geometry Dash. Well, on January 11th, a day after he first took the #1 spot on the global leaderboard, SaRy became the Hell Zone's first ever victor. In 48 hours, SaRy proved that he was the best star grinder and player in the world. SaRy would celebrate this achievement by completing the even harder sequel level, the Hell World, before it even had a chance to get rated. When the skill ceiling grew years later, people started to realize how crazy these achievements were, and suspicions were raised. What was frustrating to his detractors was there was no evidence to support the claim that SaRy hacked these levels. The only levels he ever recorded from start to finish were all the main RobTop levels at the time. Well, almost all of them. For whatever reason, SaRy never recorded himself beating Clutterfunk. While this is a perfectly fine excuse, maybe the real reason he didn't want to record it is because he didn't want to end up like Neptune. If you know who Neptune is, you probably know him as the creator of one of the most popular series in the game's history, the Version 2 series. These levels were remixes of RobTop's default levels, but with a visual overhaul and a big swing in difficulty. These levels can vary from 3 stars like Stereo Madness V2 to hard demons like Theory of Everything 2 V2. Even with these difficult levels, Neptune verified all of them and uploaded his verifications to YouTube. In 2015, a user named Axum made an expose proving that Neptune hacked all of his completions. His main piece of evidence was the rotation of the SAW objects. The reason these seemingly irrelevant objects are important to this story is that they only move in one direction. They can only change from clockwise to counterclockwise between attempts. Axum's evidence was that during Neptune's completion videos, the SAWs changed direction mid-attempt. This was clear evidence that Neptune spliced his completion videos. To some, this came as a shock, but to many, this only confirmed what they suspected. The only reason we knew that Neptune hacked was because of his recorded completions. If he never had a YouTube channel, nobody would have any hard evidence against him. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this is one of the biggest talking points on exposing SaRy. As mentioned previously, SaRy's phone had serious performance issues. Screen tears run rampant and the frame rate is very inconsistent. It's possible that he didn't record himself beating any of his levels because he literally couldn't, so this was a dead end. However, it didn't take long for people to find some very incriminating evidence against him. Previously, I glossed over how difficult SaRy's completions were. When he beat the Hell Zone, it was celebrated amongst the community, but no one truly understood how big of a deal it was. On February 6, 2020, 6 years later, Mike139115 was the first person that I could find to beat the Hell Zone on mobile after SaRy. He would also be the first person to beat the Hell World a few months later. As suspicious as that is, it pales in comparison to SaRy's hardest completion. Silent Club was an infamous impossible level created by Black P2S. It was a level that was previously considered to be impossible up until just a few years ago when Lukalizer verified it in 2021. Even today, Silent Club is one of the hardest levels in the world. Nobody has beaten Silent Club with a lower refresh rate than 144. The level was uploaded on April 1st, 2014. One day later, SaRy got a hold of the level, and beat it on the same day. If there's any hard evidence in exposing someone without a recording, this is as blatant as it gets. In 2014, people weren't good enough to realize what he just did was impossible. Everyone congratulated him on his biggest achievement and moved on. SaRy was still a part of the community, an undetected cheater. On October 21st, 2014, SaRy made multiple long blog posts on GW, venting about his mental health and the maturity level of other community members. After this, SaRy would post sparingly. At the dawn of Update 1.9, SaRy would make his last post to GW, sharing his newly created account. In 2015, Update 2.0 was released. In the update, the profile feature was fleshed out more, allowing you to add people and also post directly onto your GD profile. SaRy, after being dormant for the entirety of 1.9, briefly returned. He went to his profile and posted one of the most infamous messages in the community's history. Sometimes. After one word, SaRy was never heard from again. Over the years that I've been researching SaRy, my goal was to put a close on his story once and for all. Even though I found what I was looking for, I also found something else that ended up being much more important to me. When most people think of SaRy, they think of a mysterious person who ruled the game with an iron fist for a year, only to disappear without a trace. Some people treat him like he's nothing more than a myth. This is how I imagined SaRy when I began my research. However, when I looked into his blog post, I found a completely different person. I found an extremely passionate person who loved the game more than anyone else. He loved drawing and often made art for other people as gifts. Sometimes he'd even draw people just to cheer them up. He helped others in need, using his community status to get RobTop's attention to reinstate accounts. He even shared his cat with the community. He seemed like a man who truly cared about the community and would do whatever he could to make it a better place. With his age, SaRy had a lot of pressure on him. At 16 years old, he was the face of the Korean community. While he did make many mistakes, most notably cheating on many of his completions, I personally don't think he's a bad person for it. It's likely that the reason he left in the first place was because of the guilt he felt over it. I can't imagine how hard it must have been to walk away from a community where you were known as a hero. This experience has shown me that SaRy was more than a mystery. He was a human being just like the rest of us. Over the 3 years of my research on this topic, that's the best thing that I found. Now, after all that, you'd think I was done. There is one more thing that I need to talk about though. I just talked about the best thing that I found from this, but I didn't mention my coolest discovery. The magnum opus of my 3 years of research ended up being about Red World. August would be the first mention of Red World's development. On October 8th, 2 months later, Red World would finally be verified and uploaded to the servers. If you look at this version of Red World, it looks very different than the version that we have today. Much of the decoration is gone, and the level looks almost like a layout. Only a day after its release, the level was taken off of the servers by SaRy himself, likely due to it not looking good enough to be rated. Because of this, SaRy recruited the assistance of who else but Neptune. 3 days later, the Red World we all know and love today was uploaded. The collaboration between SaRy and Neptune was a massive success, and was rated shortly after release. Now, in my research, I found some really cool work in progress photos of this level that probably haven't been viewed in years. One of these photos, though, piqued my interest. To the untrained eye, this looks like a standard photo of Red World's Strafefly section, but there's more to this image than you may think. Firstly, the straight trail gives away how SaRy hacked his completions, which was speed hacking. The trail for a ship shows where you were previously, and physics on mobile devices make it impossible to control a ship with this much precision. When I found this photo in around 2020, that was the big takeaway I found from this, until I looked even closer. Here's a comparison of the screenshot and the level that we have today. Look at how much tighter the strafe flying section is compared to the final product. To my knowledge, nobody has ever noticed this before. This is clear evidence that Red World was nerfed. To say that my mind exploded at this moment was an understatement. There was a much harder version of Red World that was planned for release but never made it. After I regained my composure, I decided to look deeper to find any other hidden secrets about this level. If you've ever played Red World before, you're familiar with the final swing copter section, where the song ends about 5 seconds early for whatever reason. It's one of the most bizarre endings to a level in the game. Red World Rebirth, the remake of this level by Vibrant and Riot, cut out about a quarter of this section to make it sync with the song. After messing around with the level, I had another breakthrough. The original swing copter is at negative speed. Out of curiosity, I put a one-time speed change at the start of the section, and a negative speed change at the final ship. And the song syncs perfectly. This makes this last part of the level play completely differently than both released versions of Red World. After these two massive discoveries, I combed over the whole level and found multiple other weird things that were probably changed later in development. When it was all said and done, the Red World that I ended up with was almost completely different than the one that SaRy uploaded to the servers. Looking at the layout, I decided to balance the level to a similar difficulty, buffing some parts I didn't have a full read on. After that, and some redecorating on certain parts, I ended up with a level that I call Red World Classic. When I finished the level, I wanted to verify it and publish it to my account. I wondered if I should sit down and verify it along with the video, but with update 2.2, I realized I didn't have enough time to sit on the video and pray that I verify it in time. What I've decided to do though is I'll be live streaming my progress on verifying this level on this channel. I've always wanted to stream, but I've never really had a good reason to. Not too long after this video comes out, I'll be streaming my progress on verifying this level. My current hardest demon is Sakup in Hell, so I think I have a pretty good shot at verifying it. Alright, while I'm far from a great GD player, I really want to verify this level as kind of a farewell to this saga of my life. Along with the live streams, I've also opened a new Twitter account called @SaRyArchive. In the scenario that GW gets deleted, I want to archive every important post SaRy made so people can remember who he was instead of the myth that he ended up being. I have a massive Google Drive of everything he's posted, and I'll occasionally be posting stuff about his blogs there, so feel free to follow that account if you're a Geometry-History buff. I've been working on this video since 2020 when I made the exotic video. I've gone through 6 different scripts, 3 voiceovers, and even edited a little bit of a rendition. I was never happy with what I ended up with though. Eventually that burned me out of making videos for a very long time and I quit making YouTube content. A lot of that was thanks to this project. I said I was going to quit making YouTube videos, but this always loomed in the back of my head. Eventually, I just sat down and got it done. It's been difficult now that I'm in university, but I couldn't be happier with what I ended up with. Lastly, if SaRy's watching this for whatever reason, I want to thank you for everything you've done for this community. While people may not realize the impact that you had, I do, and I couldn't be more appreciative of you. If you ever decide to return, I would love to have a conversation with you one day.